Hello. Good day, everyone, wherever you may be watching this. If anyone at all will be able to watch this, please forgive the manner by which I'll be conveying this message. I was initially planning on making the edits and the mode of presentation better, but I just needed to relay what was on my mind and on my heart right now, and hence this candid method of delivery. The topic I wanted to talk about and share with you right now is, don't you find it strange that whenever we see an acquaintance or a long lost friend who we haven't seen for a long time, obviously, one of the first questions we almost immediately get asked, aside from how are you, is where are you now? Where are you working now? For context, I am a physician. I work in the healthcare industry. And obviously, for many of us doctors, work, our career, plays a central role in their lives. In fact, for some doctors, I would say that it is the center of their lives. It used to be mine for a long, long time. And whenever we see a colleague or a friend whom we haven't seen for a long time, almost always one of the first questions we ask and get asked is, where are you working now? And I don't think this question is specific to healthcare professionals alone. I'm sure it also applies to other industries, to other people engaged in other fields. Aside from the usual pleasantry, which is how are you, one of the first questions is, where are you now? In Filipino, because I'm based in the Philippines, that would be equivalent to saying, nasan ka na ngayon? Asan ka na ngayon nagtatrabaho? And I think it may seem like an innocent question on the surface, but if you look at it closer and deeper, at least when I thought about it for quite some time, that question is very telling. And that tells us that work, a career, defines, at least in large part, and in some people, it defines them in totality. Work defines our identity. Our career is who we are. Perhaps we can trace this back to our early school days, grade school and high school. It's often the case to ask students, what do you want to be when you grow up? And of course, the student would remark, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, an astronaut. And that sort of presupposition implies that career, work, will form the identity of the person when he or she is already capable of working. It's, at least for me, that question is equivalent to saying that your identity, who you are, or at least a large chunk of who you are, is your work, is your productivity. And the reason why I brought this up is if you notice, as was also my case some time ago, work thus consume a major part of our lives. It consumes actually the bulk of our life. And our identity becomes equivalent to what we can do, what we can offer, rather than, as we might initially suspect, rather than who we are. And this is in contrast to one of Eckhart Tolle's. Eckhart Tolle is a German teacher. He's not exactly a philosopher, but he's a teacher. He has a lot of popular philosophy lectures online. And this is in contrast to what he usually says, that at least in his opinion, in his teachings, our identity, man's identity, is simply to be, because we are human beings. Our identity is not to do, it's not to act, because we're not human doers. We are fundamentally human beings. Simply to exist, simply to be, and he would expound it further as simply to be in the present moment. That is simply, and at the same time profoundly and perplexingly, that is who we are. That's our identity. It's not our work, it's not our career. And for him, and it's a point which I also agree with, for him, the moment we forget this fundamental identity of ours, which is simply to exist and not really being a worker, not being really this and so professional, the moment we forget this, and the moment we put our career as our identity, as who we are, even though it isn't, that's when problems arise, neuroses arise. That's the reason why some people can unalive themselves, because of work problems. That's why interpersonal conflicts can arise because of work. That's why family problems, marriage problems can arise because of work. And these problems arise because work shouldn't be who we are. It's just a tiny fraction of who we are, but it's not our identity, because our identity is simply to exist, to be a human being. I guess that's all I want to say for now. I just found it strange one day that such a seemingly harmless question is actually very, very telling. It tells us that society, perhaps even the educational system, has sort of brainwashed us into thinking that our identity, or at least a chunk, the majority of our identity, is our work, is what we do. When in fact, I, and I'm sure many other more intelligent people out there, would disagree. Work shouldn't be who we are. It's just a fraction. It's not even the majority. It's just a fraction of our identity. But definitely not. It's not who we are. And so the next time you see a friend or a colleague you haven't seen for a long time, think about it. Maybe you'd like to rephrase the question and simply say a heartfelt, "How are you? How's the family?" And then just take it from there. Thank you for listening. I hope I made some sense, even for just a tiny part. Stay safe.